All right, thank you, everybody. I wanted to call this Wednesday, July 5th, Budget and Finance Committee session into order. We have a full agenda today, not as full as our agenda tomorrow night, however. And with that, I wanted to start with Resolution RS 2017-768, authorizes the execution of a cooperation agreement between Metro and the Metro Development and Housing Agency. And is there someone from MDHA here? Seeing no one from MDHA here, we move to defer. Exactly. And is there a second? Move in a second. Is there anybody from MDHA here? Seeing no one here. Okay. We'll move to defer. Thank you, Councilman.
One meeting, is there a vote?
Move to defer.
One meeting and a vote.
Meeting for one meeting deferral.
And all in favor?
All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Okay.
Thank you,
There
Council.
You got it.
I'm out of practice. Resolution RS 2017-769, Councilman Withers is the sponsor, approves a contract between the Metro Board of Health and the Martha O'Brien Center to operate a mobile unit to provide services to current and potential women, infants, and children program recipients. And the councilman has a letter to approve. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. In any discussion? Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye. All opposed. 769 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-770 approves the contract for services between the Metro Board of Health and the Tennessee Department of Health to provide prenatal presumptive eligibility program enrollment assistance with TennCare and Cover Kids applications. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. And Council Lady Gilmore.
Can't get my mic up. I just wanted to come and speak.
Yes. Yes, Tom,
Sure.
if you would come to the microphone. And the council lady requested just more of an explanation of the program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tom Sharp from the Health Department. This is basically a fee-for-service contract. A pregnant woman is presumed to be eligible for TennCare. Previously, basically, we would tell pregnant women, you're eligible for
Tom, if you didn't mind speaking up.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We would just tell pregnant women they were eligible for TennCare and leave it up to them to get enrolled. They had a little card that said, I'm presumptively eligible. That system did not work very well. A lot of doctors wouldn't accept that presumptive eligibility until they were formally enrolled in TennCare. And so this program allows us to actually walk them through the process and get them enrolled in TennCare so that they can get to the prenatal care that they need.
Okay.
And they pay us a set amount per enrollment.
Thank you, Council Lady.
So are they finding out from their primary care doctor? Where are they getting the information from that lets them know that they're eligible?
Well, they're in the health department for some reason. They may come for a pregnancy test. They may come for some other reason. If they're pregnant, we can get them. They may be WIC clients.
Okay, so you're telling all women?
If they're pregnant.
If they're pregnant?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but outside of that, if they don't come to the health department, there's no other way that they can find out?
That would be up to TennCare's outreach. I mean, if we touch it through a home visiting program or in any other way, we are aware of it. But if we never see them, then we don't have a way to find them.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was other ways to outreach outside.
Well, I mean, the doctors should know this. If they have a doctor, the problem is most of these women may not have a doctor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of 770, please say aye. Opposed, 770 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-772, Councilman Pulley and Henderson as the sponsors, provides a grant from the Friends of Green Hill Softball to the Metro Parks and Recreation to provide materials and labor to be used in the construction and installation of a batting cage and bullpen area in the Green Hills Park. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 772, please say aye. 772 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-773 approves a grant from the Tennessee Arts Commission to the Metro Parks and Recreation to provide 12 big band dances in Centennial Park. Council Lady Henderson is the sponsor. Is there a motion? Motion. And there is a letter. I'm also a sponsor. All in favor of 773, please say aye. All opposed, 773 is recommended to the council. Resolution is 2017-774. Council Lady Henderson, Elrod, and myself as sponsors approves a post-recovery tree planting grant from Keep America Beautiful and the United Parcel Service Foundation to the Metro Public Works Department to provide funding for trees to be planted in the riparian zone along the greenway of the Mill Creek watershed. There's a letter to approve. A motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 774, please say aye. 774 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-775, Councilman Pardue is the sponsor of the letter to approve. Approves an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation, Metro Public Works, and the City of Millersville for replacement of the old Shiloh Road Bridge. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 775, please say aye. 775 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-776, Councilman Elrod, Allen, and Cooper sponsors, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and Metro Public Works for the construction of the interchange modification on I-24 East at Hickory Hollow Parkway. There is a letter to approve. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 776, please say aye. 776 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-777, Councilman Leonardo and Hastings is the sponsor, authorizes Metro Water and Sewage Services to enter into a utility relocation contract with the Tennessee Department of Transportation to construct Clarksville Highway from Ashland City Highway to Briley Parkway. There is a letter to approve. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. And Council Lady Gilmore.
Yes, I was just hoping someone could speak more to it.
Metro Water.
Yes, here we are from Metro Water.
Snyder.
Mr. Snyder, thank you.
Jim Snyder, Metro Water. This piece of legislation and one right after it is an agreement for the water line and sewer line to be relocated, and there will be no cost to the city. TDOT will bear costs for both of those.
When is the construction going to begin?
Council Lady, I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. I know they coordinated with Public Works, and I think someone from Public Works is coming up maybe to answer that question.
Council, my name is Darrell Moore. I'm with Public Works, formerly with TDOT. I actually managed this project when I was there. The scheduled letting for the project is in May of next year, and it's a lengthy project, so it may take about 2 years to complete.
So how much of it will, or is there anticipation that it will slow down traffic significantly since it's only 2 lanes anyway on Clarksville Highway?
They're going to keep 2 lanes of that open at all times. I remember when I was there working with that, that was an issue, and that's going to be kept open. 2 lanes will be kept open during the whole construction phase.
So they're going to do the construction mostly at night then?
I don't know that, but there may be some plans for doing it at night. I'm not sure.
Okay, and you'll get with the council member for the outreach.
Well, like I said, I'm not with TDOT anymore, but I can also provide some information for Councilman Leonardo if he needs it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. The bill's sponsor, Councilman Leonardo.
Thank you, Chair. And this is the long-awaited Clarksville Pike widening project that's going to enlarge Clarksville Pike, going to make it 5 lanes all the way from MLK Bridge to Briley Parkway, and they're in the process of getting the final right-of-way acquisitions right now. It's something we've been working, for a while. Your mother's been working even longer at it with the funding, but the funding is finally there. And obviously, we'll have to look at traffic calming devices in that area because people are going to use Haynes Park Drive and they're going to use the other side of Kings Lane as a cut through. So that's something that I will be working with Public Works on. But this is the first part of it, is having the utilities moved so then we can get into actually beginning the widening process. So.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of 777, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, 777 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-778, Councilman Leonardo Hastings, as the sponsors, authorizes Metro Water and Sewage Services to enter into a utility relocation contract with the Tennessee Department of Transportation to construct Clarksville Highway from Ashland City Highway to Briley Parkway. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 778, please say aye. 778 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-779, Councilman Elrod is the sponsor. Amends Ordinance BL 2016. I'm also the sponsor here. Amends Ordinance BL 2016-235 to increase permit fees for closures in the right-of-way permit high-impact area. There is also an amendment. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded, and with that, Councilman Pulley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just can I ask Finance a couple of questions about this? And can you talk to us about the impact of this currently, if this were to be passed? And you can address 780 and 781 in here if you want, I would assume, because they kind of interrelate to one another, I believe. Y'all debating on who's going to answer that question?
I can tell him a few things if he wants.
Well, sure, we can start with Mr. Jamison while they...
Councilman Pulley, the essence of the bill is that it would essentially double 3 sets of fees with respect to right-of-way closures. Right now, we currently have a fee of $100 for closures of less than 5 days. This bill would double that to $200. A fee of $20 for closures in excess of 20 days. This would double it to $40. We have a processing fee of $30. This would double it to $60, and a special events fee of $230, and this would again be doubled to $460. The concern is that because fees are anticipated to cover the direct costs of a department for the implementation of the services, it is typically preceded by a fee study analysis, and that has not been conducted in this instance.
So were these fees just recently increased?
In last year, 2016, I'm hearing.
So they were increased in 2016. Was this done pursuant to a fee study at that time?
It was in 2016. And I think, I don't mean to call out Ms. Wallstrom, but I see her nodding her head.
And there has not been a fee study done to look at the current increases addressed in this bill?
Correct.
Or resolution?
Correct.
Does this resolution bind us?
It would be binding on the Public Works Department.
So what kind of impact would it have? Does it make sense? It seems to make sense to me that we would do a fee study if we're going to look at raising these fees.
That's what we would typically do for all fees requests of this magnitude.
I don't see the sponsor here, so I'm just wondering why we're heading down this road if we haven't done that study.
Well, also, Councilman, I have a note here of the request to defer to the second meeting in September. So move to defer and re-refer back to this committee.
Okay, I second that motion.
All right. So there's a motion to re-refer back to this committee in the second meeting in September. That is what it is. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. So we are re-referring this back to this committee in the second meeting in September. Resolution number 2017-780, also Councilman Elrod, amends Ordinance BL 2016-235 to create a fee for right-of-way site management plan permit. Also, there's a note here to request to defer and re-refer this back to this committee in the second meeting of September. All in favor of re-referring this, please say aye. 780 will be re-referred back to this committee in the second meeting of September. Resolution 2017-781, also, Councilman Arod, also requesting to defer to the second meeting in September. Move to defer and re-refer. All in favor say aye. Aye. 781 is re-referred to this committee in the second meeting in September. Then we come to Resolution 2017-782, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of David Ray against Metro government in the amount of $11,500. Motion made and seconded, and Councilman Pulley, are you, yes.
Is there somebody here? Well, I guess I could ask these questions of the legal director if nobody's here from the sheriff's office. He was an inmate at the time of this incident. Is that correct?
Correct.
So did he receive treatment did we already pay for his treatment?
We paid for part of it. He was in the transport van when the accident occurred, when the door fell down on the van. He was treated at Nashville General. That would have been at our expense. We would have covered those costs. But I believe that there was subsequent treatment after he was no longer in custody. And so the amount of medical bills that we're paying is about $6,500 out of the total $12,000, because a portion of that would have already been covered by Metro.
And this amount of money represents that which was paid by him or his insurance company subsequent to the treatment that he received when he was an inmate?
Yes, those were the amounts that were billed to him. Now, whether they've been paid or not, I don't know.
All right. No further questions.
Councilman Glover. Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor of 782, please say aye. Aye. 782 is recommended to the council. Bills on second reading. Bill number BL 2017-705. Councilman Schulman and Blaylock as sponsors, establishes an incentive program to allow neighborhoods to be awarded for meeting all code requirements. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Councilman Glover, you wish to speak on this bill? Yes.
Actually, I'll defer for one moment, if I may, Chair, to the sponsor, Councilman Schulman. I assume he's going to give us some explanations, and I'd like to ask some questions.
Councilman Schulman.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councilman Glover. This is the neighborhood incentive bill to try to get neighborhoods to have some incentive to beautify or clean up codes violations. The idea would be to send codes in, let them look around, find codes violations without a penalty, and then get the neighborhood to work together to help clean up the neighborhood, have codes come back, and use incentive funds to use that as the prize to get some of these neighborhoods cleaned up. We're having trouble, obviously, with some neighborhoods. I know neighbors are scared to turn their neighbors in. This would be kind of a joint neighborhood effort to do it. I know some people are interested in doing it, but it didn't get funded during this budget cycle. There was some money that was put in for the beautification commissioners, which is wonderful. But this one is a little bit bigger of a project, and so I think the idea would be to defer this bill indefinitely with the idea of working on it, maybe working with several different parties on it to see if we can come up with an idea, concept, get some definitions that would help it along the way, and then maybe ultimately get some funding to actually implement. We have a problem out there, and I know Codes sees it, and we see it as council members. So this is an idea to try to deal with that. But at this point, with no funds, we have to kind of hold on. So my request to the Budget Committee would be to defer this bill indefinitely, and then we'll take it back up at some other time.
Thank you, Councilman. So you're making a motion to defer indefinitely?
Well, I can. I'm not in the committee, so I can make it. I'm just requesting that.
Moved and seconded. Seeing several people in the queue, if you would like to speak on this, Councilman Glover.
The only thing I'll add, I mean, I'll vote for the indefinite deferral because obviously, yeah, we need to figure out the funding. The only thing I would like to see the sponsors do, though, is come back to us before we begin the process next year on the budget, because this could be a nice idea, and there's some neighborhoods in my district that perhaps this would work on. So anyway, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council Lady Gilmore, did you want to speak to the bill?
I did. I think it's a good idea. I just would add, I think the guidelines need to be really worked out on the front end. It sounds good in theory, but I'm just kind of thinking it through how neighborhoods that normally would not be engaged, how you would engage those so you don't have the same active neighborhoods that normally would be engaged and would do it anyway, receiving those funds.
Thank you. Back to the sponsor.
Mr. Chairman, Council Lady Gilmore, I think that's a wonderful idea. We left the bill kind of generic at this point and let, if the idea was to pass, was to get to work and figure out how it would work. But heard from a number of council members that said, how do you define neighborhood? How do you do it correctly so that it doesn't get taken advantage of and you really hit home where you want to have an impact? So appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Bircher.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't had an opportunity to publicly thank the sponsor for bringing forward this legislation. Great idea. An extending at-large member. He comes out to the districts and he jumps in and try to help district council members where we have various needs. So I'd like to thank the sponsor on this.
Thank you, Council Lady. And then Councilman Glover, did you have a last word?
No, I.
Set? And then Councilman Shulman.
I'd just like to hear some more from Council Lady Bircher, if you don't mind.
Yes. Yes. Well, motion to defer indefinitely. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is made and approved. Bill number 2017-706, Councilman Davis is the sponsor, amends the Metro Code establishing the Metro Neighborhood Improvement Fund Commission and to dedicate a portion of the transient occupancy privilege taxes generated by short-term rental properties to the Metro Neighborhood Improvement Fund. Is there a motion? Not that we have. Move to defer by rule and is seconded, and that does not require a vote. Did you have a comment, Councilman? Okay, that's left over. All right, there's no vote on that. It's a defer by rule. Deferred by rule 706. Bill number BL 2017-743, Councilman Mendez-Sledge and others, terminates an agreement between Metro and the U.S. Marshal Service to house federal inmates. Is there a motion made and seconded, and our bill's sponsor, Councilman Mendez?
It's my intention to move tomorrow to withdraw this.
So you would make a motion to defer? Withdraw. And to withdraw tomorrow night. Okay? All right.
Yeah, I guess, well, if somebody in the committee wants to make a...
Okay. All right. Motion made to withdraw, seconded. All in favor of withdrawal, please say aye. This will, the committee will show its approval of the motion by the sponsor to withdraw. Bill number BL 2017-744, Councilman O'Connell, Elrod, and others, approves a parking agreement between the Metro Traffic and Parking Commission and Warner Music Incorporated for the use of up to 35 parking spaces for a fee in the library parking garage. There is a letter to approve. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. And Council Lady Gilmore. Hang on one. There we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe this was the same one we had before we went to break. I don't know if we had any follow-up as it relates to it, and if we did, I haven't seen it. So
there was circulated this afternoon, it may not have reached you, some answers to questions.
Okay, is someone here
but that
to
came in
articulate
late.
that? I wouldn't have seen it this afternoon.
Sharon Wallstrom was here early. There she is, behind the pillar. Okay.
Tom Turner.
And Tom Turner from the partnership.
Sharon Wallstrom and Tom Turner with the Nashville Downtown Partnership. We did circulate this afternoon. There were 9 questions. Do you want me to read off the answers, or did you have something in particular?
If you could just speak into the microphone, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to read off all the answers, or did you have a particular
I did
issue?
not. I was probably trying to work during the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
The extent of the contract with Warner is a 7-year period at market rate. Warner does know about the MDHA garage, but the library garage is closer. There are 200 reserved spaces in the library for patron parking, for library patron parking. The new levels are scheduled for completion in fall of this year, but with an anticipated occupancy of November. The new levels will add an additional 351 spaces to the parking garage. And there are currently reserved spaces. The hotels have 180 spaces, and that is a Metro contract. The library, as we said before, has 200 spaces. Elmington Realty has 175 spaces. That's also a Metro contract. NCC has 100 spaces. That is a Metro contract. Library employees have 43 spaces, and the regular monthly parkers have 84 spaces. The average occupancy rate in the garage is Monday through Friday. At some point during the day, it does hit 100%, and the rest of the time on the weekends, it's in the mid 80% of occupancy, unless there is a special event. And certain event nights also reach 100% occupancy. And I had another question from another council member about security cameras. There currently are no security cameras in the garage, but we are looking at that.
Thank you. So please tell me what the total amount of parking spaces are in, without me having to add it up. I was writing it down, but what are the total just for the entire space, that parking garage? I got it in the breakouts, but what's the total amount versus how much is allocated?
The garage has 1,033 spaces now. With the 351, it will be 1,384.
And if you add up all of these, how much of them are allocated to the various persons that you were saying? 700. Versus like the Elmington group, you said, MCC, you said had 100. So if we added up all those.
$698.
Okay.
If my math didn't fail me.
I don't know. I think your math's probably better than mine right now. And so are we saying that the contract would begin now and you're anticipating the spaces in November, or would begin in November?
Yeah, but, sorry. Some of the space that's been taken away for construction will start to come back over the next few weeks. And we're looking at Warner's occupancy sometime in the August-September timeframe, and we'll have more spaces coming back online that were taken away for construction. And then it's likely we'll get access to the spaces floor by floor. So we'll probably get access to a full floor sometime before November, but we don't anticipate any issues with 35 spaces. It's a relatively small number, and we've lost, we're down about 60 right now just to construction. So as soon as they do one more pour, then we'll have access to the spaces where the ramp is going up to the next level. So we will have 35 spaces. We'll have more than 35.
And how many did you say the Renaissance uses currently?
180, but it's nested, so only the Renaissance park's there. It's valet parking. It's a long-term contract with the hotel.
I'm with you, but is it still inside of the 133 that you provided, the 1,333?
It is.
It's in that number?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So even though 35 seems like a relatively small number, if anyone were to go downtown during this time, like I said, a lot of times you see mothers, specifically, I see a lot of mothers with kids kind of just driving around, looking for parking. It does sound like some things are going to come online, but I think it needs to really be thought through before we allocate some more. There, I mean, it's really tight. It's nothing to go down there during the middle of the day and see both sides of that parking closed, and patrons that want to use that library not able to access that and have to find other ways. And so I would just say that, and I know that I saw a couple of citizens, they said, "Oh my gosh, you are so right, so thank you for speaking up." And I always tell them, bless your heart, why do you look at the Channel 3? You got to find something better to do. But anyway, so I think that is a serious concern. It's just something we need to think about before letting those parking spaces out. And like I said, it may seem small, but it's really not if you were to be down there in the day.
Well, Council Lady, it's your proposal that this agreement be shifted over to the MDHA garage?
I think Berkeley, Allen has suggested as well, just that we look at some others, just so that the citizens, we want them to have access to the library. And I just think we really should hold true to that. And it's not that we don't want Sony to have parking spaces, but I just would encourage any council member, if you were to go down there right now, during those hours that they said that were at 100%, it is really hard to find parking.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Cooper. Ms. Wallstrom, in your email, you had enumerated the various kind of contracts with Metro. Some of them were 7 years and longer. And so the market rate, what is the market rate for parking now? And is that per the contract renegotiated every year? Or when you do a 7-year contract, are you locking that in? How does that work?
The rate would flow with the current rate in the garage. The rates in the garage are set by the Traffic and Parking Commission on an annual basis. So today the rate is $135. Traffic and Parking Commission evaluates the surrounding properties and makes a determination whether the rates are appropriate, and they adjust it. And if the rates went up, I don't think they would ever go down, but if the rates went up, the contract calls for a rate increase at that time.
Okay, and you said 135, meaning a month?
Yes.
Okay, and so for the Traffic and Parking Commission, who provides the research to them to verify that that is the accurate market rate? Who does that parking analysis?
Nashville Downtown Partnership. We have information on over 300 parking lots downtown.
And do you coordinate with the area MPO or anything from just a parking policy perspective? Are you all having any conversations, or you just do that internal to your
We
group?
do it, and we have it on a website that gets about 1 million hits a year. So it's something that we do as part of our everyday business downtown.
I appreciate that. And for public resources like this that we are contracting, when we work with a corporate entity, do we, from a partnership perspective, look at whether or not they participate in our Easy Ride program, from a transit perspective, from some of our larger corporate entities?
Well, we do. From my perspective, I think Warner they're using the shuttle from Nissan Stadium, as well as some parking at proposed parking at the garage. I think they've met with RTA, MTA on extending, because they haven't moved yet, but on extending that to their employees as well.
Okay, but there is no, as part of the conversation when we enter into a parking contract with people to provide them with parking and thus contributing to our traffic problem, are we ever having a concurrent conversation about those corporate entities also participating in our Easy Ride program?
Well, every parking deal that we've been involved in, there's always a discussion to use all three of those options, as well as anything else that's available to them. And of course, we encourage them to live downtown where they could walk to work.
Right. So, but if a corporate entity wants to contract with Metro, do they approach you particularly? Do they approach Public Works? What's the initial point of engagement?
Usually it goes through economic development and then flows to us.
Okay. So it goes first to Mr. Wilshire then? Okay. All right. And Mr. Wilshire, you and I have talked about Easy Ride and all those other factors, right?
And we have spoken with the company, and the company has an appointment with Eric Byer to discuss the Easy Ride program next week or the week after, I believe.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And I appreciate also Council Lady Gilmore's concerns about making sure that all our patrons for the library have access. But I also just want to make sure that we as a council, when we engage in conversations about parking, recognize how crucial that is to our larger transportation conversation, because, you know, we look at these things incrementally, 35 here and there, and I recognize that we have the situation that we have now. But everybody that we provide parking to from a corporate perspective, that just contributes to our traffic problem. So with that, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I'd like to ask Public Works and Downtown Partnership a couple questions. So let me make sure I'm following your numbers correctly. The 351, that's going to be a net new number, net new spaces?
Yes.
Okay, and that doesn't include any of the current rentals or anything of that nature, correct?
Nope.
The 100% number, the 100% occupancy Monday through Friday, do we know the extent of the amount of time that we're sitting at 100% in those parking spaces?
It'll usually be between 10 and 2.
Okay, 10 and 2. All right, so we're gonna have a net increase of 34% with the 351 new parking spaces.
Right.
But 60 of those spaces are, well, 60 existing spaces have been basically taken down while the construction is going on. So in reality, by November 1st, you're going to have a net gain once you leave the construction phase of almost 40% additional parking spaces.
That's correct.
Between 10 and 2, are we anticipating that there being a major problem with the 100% occupancy rental, or not rental, but usage with that number of new spaces?
No, I think it's going to change it dramatically. Obviously, things ebb and flow with construction and other projects that go on, but I think it will open up a lot of space. And just to give you a little more information we track when the library's having special events, which is that occur during that 10 to 2 time frame, and we put the sign up that says garage is full except for library and monthly parkers. So, and the regulars that go to the library know that if the sign's up that they can still go in, there's still a space.
Okay.
And so there's an interview process, I mean, we don't check their library card to make sure they're telling us the truth, but if they say they're going to the library, they go in.
Okay. Mr. Jamison, in the event we get into kind of a tight spot, I'll say, for lack of a better word, is there the possibility to analyze this contract down the road and then relook at it for an MDHA, maybe moving the contract? I don't know. I'm going to, Mr. Wilshire, I don't know if that's a possibility either, but I mean, it sounds like we're going to have enough space now. To me, as I'm running the numbers over here, it doesn't sound like we're going to really create any hardships on the patrons there. But is there a way for us to evaluate that down the road? I'm not saying put it in here, but is there just something where you can kind of keep your eye on it? Or Mr. Jamison, are there options available to us there?
Let me double check the contract. They would typically have amendment provisions in there with advance notice and termination even if required, but typically that's toward the end of the contract and they'll specify. I don't have that in front of me, but I'll know that before the end of the day.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council Lady Dowell.
I was wondering if you could refresh our memory about why we're not using the MDHA garage, why I decided to use the library garage. I couldn't remember from last time.
Well, proximity.
Okay, just because it's closer.
Mm-hmm.
How much closer is it?
Be 2 full blocks.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the MDHA garage at 5th and Church and the Warner Music is located in the Nashville City Center?
That's correct.
Isn't that almost exactly the same distance?
No.
Okay, all right. I have an office across the street, so I walk it every day.
Well, the entrance to the MDHA garage is going to be on 5th Avenue, and the entrance to the library garage is either on 7th or 6th or through the library.
Walk through the library.
Right. So, or you can go on 7th or 6th, and the MDHA entrance is actually on 5th.
Sorry.
So
sorry for interrupting, Council Lady.
That's okay. What would be the opposition to using the MDHA garage temporary until these additional 351 spaces are available?
I think we'd have to ask MDHA and the operator.
So it wouldn't be a big deal about, besides talking with them about using their garage until these spaces are available in November so that there's no potential for the library patrons to not have access to parking spaces.
Right. But again, as a garage operator, we're down about 60, and those 60 are coming back, and we're talking about 35. So we still have a surplus of spaces that are coming back during construction, after post-ramp construction.
So, Council Lady, I do see our own executive director from MDHA here, right there, if he would like to answer your question.
Come on up, Jim.
Could you restate the
Could you restate the question, please?
The question is, why are they not able to just use your garage and we can just leave the public library garage to the people patronizing the library? What's the problem with just using MDHA garage and letting them park there? And if, like for now or even permanently? And I know you said that proximity, but it doesn't seem like it's that much closer to me. The concern we have, just to let you
35 spaces, I don't have a problem with that. We have to do it at whatever rates our SP Plus is charging for other clients.
So there's no issue with them using the space?
Not from NDHA's standpoint, but if
okay.
it's farther, and it sounds like it might be, that might be a real consideration. And there's a price point, so I don't know what our prices are compared to theirs. So.
Okay. So the issue that we're dealing with is a lot of the library patrons feel like there's not sufficient parking already at our public library, and they want to have access to space to park to patronize the library. And there's concern that allocating these additional spaces will leave the garage overcrowded and not any spaces available. And so what they're saying is 351 spaces will come available in November, which to solve the issue. And so is there any problem with them temporarily using your garage until those spaces are available in November?
Not from my seat in the stands.
Okay.
No.
Well, it seemed like to me that this issue is easily resolved using the MDHA garage, and then in November when the 351 spaces come available, then you bring that back and they can move over there.
I think that works.
Thank you. Is that Council Lady? Back to Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you. I just had two questions. One was those 89 spaces that are allocated, who uses those 89 spaces? It just says 89 spaces there. 84 spaces. Do we know who uses those 84 spaces that you listed?
That's the regular monthly parkers.
So who would be those regular monthly parkers?
Could be any employee downtown.
Okay, so is there a contract with some more law firms that are not listed on here? Is everybody listed on here that has contracts?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second piece, is there a difference between the price, the monthly price between the library parks and the MDHA?
I think there currently is, but Mr. Harbison just indicated that during the short-term period, he would match the library rate.
Okay, so the MDHA one is a little bit higher?
I think that's probably the case.
Okay.
Our rates vary. We have an agreement with Fifth Third Bank that they get a lower rate because they've agreed to keep the open space in front of Fifth Third as green space as long as the contract runs for parking. So our rates vary, but our other monthly parkers, there are 400 spaces to Fifth Third for open space, which is probably the reason we built the garage.
Okay.
They get a lower rate. Everybody else pays a higher rate than what he has. But if it's 35 at 135, I need to check with my staff, but I don't think there's a problem with that.
Okay, well, thank you for.
I think Berkeley was talking to our chief operating officer about this sometime last week. I just know the details, but 35 at 135 shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you so much. I thank you for taking the time to answer each one of you. So I just would like to make a brief comment. I do think we need to explore it more. And I just kind of heard the reasoning. I do think, and I think we have given incentives, so it's no problem saying what we'll do for Sony and things of this nature. But I do think if the library, which we say we want people to attend, to come in, we should make sure that patrons who are just everyday citizens have access. And while we say that 35 is not a lot, if you continue to allocate a little bit here and there, it does become less. And then when I heard the reasoning is just that it's 2 blocks away, I don't know that that's the best reasoning. So I hate to be a appeal here, but I think we just need to think about our citizens. And like I said, anybody that's gone down there and you see those mothers or you just see people trying to access it, I think that is important. And if we can work out another agreement where a corporation still has access, which is totally fine, but it's just 2 blocks away, I think we should do that so they can have direct access. And we should not play down 35 spaces. Thank you. So I would make a recommendation that we look at this lease and move to explore it more.
Okay. So, Council Lady, is that a motion? So, Council Lady, is that a motion to defer, or is that?
It's a motion to defer and look at it some more. Yes.
Motion to defer and look at it. Is there a second to the motion? Motion made and seconded on the motion to defer for how many meetings? One.
I think just one. I think we have a general idea, and Tom's really smart. We could get it together between now and next one, but I would definitely say one.
So a motion to defer one meeting to look at the MDHA garage relationship to the
Thank you.
overall agreement. Motion made and seconded. All in favor of, discussion? All right, discussion on the motion. Councilman Glover?
I just want to make sure, I mean, we're talking about 2.5% of their inventory. That's all we're looking at. And unless they can tell us that there is going to create a hardship on folks for basically what sounds like maybe a 30 to 45-day period, I think we're getting in, and I think I'm going to ask Law Director Cooper to tell me, are we getting into rewriting this ordinance, I mean, I don't think we can just do what we're talking about doing here, can we?
Well, the council technically can't rewrite the contract. I mean, the council can approve or not approve. Now, if it wants to withhold approval unless certain changes are made, it can do that. But there is an agreement in place that has been reached.
And when is this agreement supposed to go into place? Okay.
It's August 14th.
August 14th. Okay. I mean, I'm trying to understand, we're talking about a $56,000 a year contract, and I don't know if, I mean, I don't really understand apparently the complication it's going to create, because we've got almost 40% new parking places coming online over the next 100 days. And we're talking about eating up a grand total of 2.5% of the inventory. So, I mean, for me, I'm having difficulty understanding the other side of why we're arguing, not going ahead and honoring the 35 spaces. So that's the challenge I have. So maybe if my math is wrong, please help me understand it. But, you know, I'm not hearing you guys tell me that it's going to create a hardship on anyone specifically. You feel like you've got enough new inventory and spaces from the construction that's going to be opening back up between now and sounds like even August, September, that you're still going to have a net 25 spaces from the 60. And then on November 1st, you're going to have the additional 351.
Yep, that math is
Okay,
right.
I thought that's what I was hearing, but I just want to make sure I understand that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. The bill's sponsor, Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me. Despite not being a member of the committee, I think as the bill sponsor and as the representative of the district where the discussion is centered, you know, on the one hand, there's a part of me that says, maybe I should have a heightened curiosity around any time we allocate scarce parking resources in 34 other districts. There's the other part of me that says, while I know this is the kind of crown jewel of the public library system, and we need to be appropriately mindful of all the stewards. As a regular user of that myself, I'm also mindful of the scarcity of the resource of parking in general downtown, and that the downtown code is the only zoning that I'm aware of in the city that allows you to offer new construction without parking. And I have seen a couple of proposals that offer this. So I think in terms of equitable access, some of this has to be more focused on mobility over the long term and far less, to Councilman Glover's point, about a relatively small portion of an inventory of a resource that actually hasn't yet been allocated. So I would honestly encourage my colleagues not to defer here and to recognize that the partnership itself has the rights to potentially lease this, and we as a city have the potential to lease any of our available parking to any private entity or other public entity. And that as a scarce resource, we should probably be arguing more about the future of mobility in Nashville, and particularly access to the urban core, than about these particular 35 spaces. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Back to Council Lady Dowell.
I think he touched upon one piece of what, you know, I think the conversation is about here. It's about the scarcity of resources and parking. I think most people in the city know that they can go down to the library and typically find a parking space. And there is a concern that as we continue to build without that, you know, a requirement in there about being able to have parking spaces, that we're going to end up leasing out all the spaces we have for people just to come downtown and go to the library. I don't see an issue with them using the MDHA garage. I mean, I really don't. The public library is a place people know. I mean, I feel like I can always go down there. If I need to run in the library, there's parking available. You can come in and leave out. You're talking about bringing people in, parking all day long just to go to work. I really don't see what the big deal is about you just parking right in the MDHA garage versus infringing upon the library. I think the whole issue overall is not just 35 parking spaces. I think it is a concern across the city about, allocating out, leasing out all of our public parking that we use to access public buildings. That's the overarching concern there. And so I think for some people, it's more than just 35 spaces. It's 35 today. When we do these 351, are we going to allocate another 50 spaces and lease them out to someone else? And then at what point will we not have any spaces for those people coming down to visit the library because they're allocated out to companies coming in that we're not doing good planning and making sure that they have parking available? So I think, when you talk about doing the math, I think it's a math part to it, and then it's a part about, is this good policy? Should we continue this? Should we start thinking now about, how do we preserve spaces and access to our public buildings? So I think that it's bigger than a percentage of spaces, but I can go either way on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Just a couple of things. And I probably need to ask somebody from finance or John or Mike or somebody. If MDHA takes this contract on, that money goes to MDHA and Metro loses those funds, right? Okay, that's what I thought. So that would be my point number one. Point number two, we do not have a net loss of anything. We have a net gain. That's point number two. Point number three, I'm not sure that we need to get in the habit of debating a potential policy change in midstream of a contract being executed. And so if we want to look at how we manage our parking policies moving forward, we do that moving forward. We don't do that in the midst of this. To Councilman Glover's point, to Councilman O'Connell's point, I have to agree with them 100%. And I think we've beaten this dead horse, and I think it's time that we just agree to disagree on policy, but move this forward, because we are not losing opportunity for our patrons to park. We are gaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. Just for someone who doesn't frequent the downtown area as I should, I live on the other side of the county. But I say all that to say, you mentioned about the proximity, like how long a walk is that? You were saying where your office is, just to provide some context to the proximity. Are we talking about a 15-minute walk, a 20-minute walk? Like what would be the difference between them parking in one garage as opposed to the other?
20 yards, I would think.
Okay. And then my next question, too, is for the 351 spaces, do we know how those spaces will be allocated? Do we know that yet, or we don't know that yet?
Well, there's a demand for parking that exists in that general area, so they will be taken up by monthly parkers. There's also a federal courthouse project across the street. There's a white garage there, and it's called the White Garage. It's scheduled to be taken down. So it'll be a steady flow of people transitioning their monthly contracts from that location into the library garage. And those you can cut off at any point and still retain the number of spaces for the library visitors.
So patrons currently right now have 200 dedicated?
200.
Okay, so of the 351 from that bucket, how many additional will be in addition to the 200, or we don't know that yet?
Don't know that yet.
Okay, that's fair. Chair, I could go either way with this too. We just need to make sure that we're really being considerate of our citizens that use our public library.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Dowell, is this from before the All set? All right, and then back to our bill sponsor, Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There has been a considerable amount of speculation on the interests of the library. I don't know if we have a representative of the library here to speak to whether or not the library thinks this is actually appropriate, this level of debate about 35 spaces. If so, I would invite them to. Perhaps the administration has checked in with them and could speak to that. I think that might be fundamentally important. I think at the risk of having been misinterpreted earlier, I think one of the things that we would do best to do in terms of considering the urban core as a whole is maybe disabuse ourselves of the idea that free parking at all times on all days of the week is something that should persist into the future as good policy anyway. So I will leave that and hope for a comment from the library's perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Is, by chance, anyone from the library here, or would the administration having Matt, have you talked to the library?
I've had casual conversations with them, but not enough. I mean, Tom represents the management of the entire garage. This is not just unique to the library, so I think Tom would probably be the best position to speak about overall, and he has addressed overall utilization of the garage.
Okay, thank you. Have you, asking Councilman O'Connell's question, Tom, have you talked to the library?
We talk to them on a pretty regular basis. They're happy that the garage is expanding. I think that the full sign, even though it says full, library patrons can still come in, but the amount of times that they see that, if that drops, I think they're going to be happy. And I think it provides more parking for their employees too.
Okay, thank you. We'll robustly discuss. No one else in the queue. There's a motion made and seconded for deferral of one meeting. Council Lady Gilmore.
Yeah, I think I see some people getting bent out of shape. It's unfortunate we just can't have discussion anymore. But I think the real issue is if you're a patron at the park and you get 30 minutes waived, there are a lot of people use it. And I think we have to decide as a city, are our citizens just as important as others that we use it? It's not about free parking. It's about having access. I can go either way. I go down there frequently, and I see those yellow signs up. And so that was brought to my attention. I see people walking around. I see people having to go across the street and actually pay for the parking if they're not regular users. They don't know to ask, if I'm coming to use the library, do I have access to it? So if Councilmember O'Connell wants to move forward with it, I have no problem with that. I'm just saying that just know that the 35 does make a difference. And if we're talking about people walking 2 blocks, I think it should be the citizens first because they pay taxes, and I think we have to remember that. But like I said, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I just know that it is an issue, so we can either move it forward, or if he wants to defer it, I'm fine either way. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. I'm trying to understand what that means. Quite
what that motion means.
Literally.
Yeah. So,
but I did notice, if this is okay, Mr. Turner, you nodding your head when someone suggested that perhaps the parking be at MDHA until the new spaces were coming online. You might have been nodding to something else, but no. Is that something that you would be comfortable with?
Oh, I think that's very workable.
Okay. Would that be workable for the Council Lady?
That's fine if it's okay with the council member who says that he would like to move it forward. If he just would like to take that into consideration, I would ask that.
Okay. I see the councilman nodding. In this case, I see other people in the queue. Councilman Pridemore.
Yes, I guess this is directed to Finance. About, you said that the funds would not go to Metro if they went to MDHA. What's that figure? Do we have that?
Somewhere in the 50,000 range. Just did it in my head. So 50. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to get it out there, announce that would. I know that's not a large amount, but neither is what we're talking about in some respect. So I mean that's 50,000 less. I know that's not much, but that's some of some of the smaller departments' needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover?
Just very quickly, I'm not going to vote for deferral on it. I think Councilman O'Connell, I'm going to follow his path here. But if we went down this path and used MDHA, Mr. Jameson or Mr. Cooper, what's required in this bill? What would be required in order to allow that option to occur?
Start over.
Okay, well then, I have my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Back to Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you. To the most recently made point, we can't start over. And it's not in our power to sit here and rewrite a contract in committee. And so I'm going to vote against the deferral. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Dowell, hang on one moment. We're sorry, we're machine hiccup. There we are. Or yeah, I believe your microphone is on.
I guess I'm confused because what I heard Council Lady Gilmore said is that, one, we need to preserve parking spaces for people using the library. And number two, right now we currently have an overcapacity issue where people do not have a place to park and it stays full between certain hours. And so in looking at those two issues, one, and we'll have 351 spaces available in November, I think the compromise was temporarily that he would use the MDHA's parking spaces until those 351 come aboard, and that will alleviate any short-term shortage problems at the library. Since if we're already experiencing a shortage of parking spaces right now, what would be the what would be the issue with you waiting to November when those 351 come available during your contract and taking those spaces then, so it doesn't create a short-term hardship on the people who are currently using the library between now and November. And so Tom said it's fine with him. Jim Harbison said it's fine with him. So I don't understand what rewriting all the contract. Wouldn't you just say the contract starts in November when those 351 spaces is available and you go and use those spaces at MDHA?
So let me just provide a couple points of clarification. First, the capacity is the library, as Thomas stated, has 200 leased spaces. And when the signs go up saying we're at capacity, it's in order to protect people using the library. So the signs go up saying, unless you're using the library or you are already a contracted tenant, you have a monthly membership or otherwise, then you cannot use the library. So it's essentially saying people who may just be coming in because they want to go visit another store downtown, those are the folks who the signs are intended to, and the signs say that. If you are a library patron, you can still come in. Correct me if I'm wrong. The signs do not say that, Councilor?
That's what I'm saying. It does not.
It says full unless you are a monthly user or library patron. Second, the reason that the contracts would need to be renegotiated is because currently, while Tom and Mr. Harbison, Mr. Turner, and Mr. Harbison may be okay with this, there is a contract between a company, the potential tenant here, and that tenant, first of all, has a contract to have 40 spaces in the library. That's what's under consideration. There is construction at 505 Church Street, which they would be required to walk around during this interim period while construction's ongoing there. All of that may be fine. Regardless, even if it's A-okay to everybody, the contract would need to be changed to say you do not have access to these spaces at this location. You have access to these spaces at this location for these 3 months, and then it would change to this other location afterwards, or it would be a different, it's just a different contract. So I wanted to make those 2 points.
Thank you. So I get it. So you've negotiated given the parking spaces at the library. So that's it.
Correct.
So is that something that your office do regularly, negotiate parking spaces at public spaces?
No, it is not a common occurrence. I mean, this body would know that. This is the first one of these we've brought to this body. There is a contract that ServiceSource has for some parking spaces in the garage underneath here, but Mr. Turner listed to you the other parties who have contracts at this garage. Metro manages 2 garages, the one underneath Public Square Park and the library garage. The other contracts, Renaissance, and then the Elmington Capital, which I believe is the commercial real estate entity that has the office space at the top of the Renaissance Hotel, are not contracts that we have brought. So we have not in the past, but in this case, because we were so excited about attracting Warner and the 175 jobs that they're bringing to the city, an accommodation for them for market rate parking spaces. We are not providing any incentive or discount, but simply guaranteeing that they had access to parking during this time, we thought was a smart thing that provide a guaranteed revenue stream for the city. And in particular, given the additional capacity being added here, we thought it was a smart thing to help guarantee a return on Metro's investment in the expanded parking. So we believed it was the appropriate thing to do in this case, but it is not something that we regularly bring. But in many deals, we do discuss parking with them. And as we discussed in response to Councilperson Henderson's request, in every instance, we talk to companies, including Warner, about Easy Ride, about parking. And in fact, we have worked with Warner. A number of Warner's employees are actually going to be parking at Nissan Stadium and riding a shuttle over. Some of them will be living downtown. We look at all forms of traffic and parking demand management.
Thank you. Councilor Gilmore.
I think we were on the motion to defer, to give the opportunity for the contract to be amended, just as council members, because it came before budget. So I would put the motion to defer and just let the chips fall where they may. Thank you.
Have your motion. Motion has been seconded. No one else in the queue. All in favor of the motion to defer, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. The motion to defer is defeated. Now we're on to 744 itself. Seeing no one else in the queue. All in favor of 744, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 744 is recommended to the council. Bill number 2017-787 amends the Metro Code revising the rate of levy of the special assessment for the Gulch Central Business Improvement District for Metro Nashville. Councilman O'Connell is the sponsor. Is there a motion? Motion moved and seconded. Seeing anyone in the queue for discussion, all in favor of 787, please say aye. 787 is recommended to the council. Bill number 2017-788, Councilman O'Connell is the sponsor, amends the Metro Code setting the rate of levy for the special assessment for the Downtown Central Business Improvement District for Metro Nashville. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion, all in favor of 788, please say aye. 788 is recommended to the council. Bill number 2017-790, Councilman Mendez and Freeman are the sponsors, amends the Metro Code pertaining to health insurance benefits for members of the Metro Council after they leave office. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded, and our bill sponsor, Councilman Mendez.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask to have this deferred for 3 meetings to the second meeting in August. But before I do that, I'd like to have Mr. Jameson explain the bill and then make a suggestion before making the motion to defer for 3 meetings. Mr. Jameson, could you explain the bill?
Sure. The current code provides that there are health benefits allowed to Metro Council members in 2 phases. One is if you get elected to 1 term but not a second, or for whatever reason you serve less than 8 years, after your term is completed, you can continue on the Metro Health Plan as long as you pay the full premium that other Metro Council members pay. However, by ordinance, this council adopted many years ago a provision whereby if you serve 8 years, 2 terms or more prior to term limits, you can continue to pay as long as you pay the percentage paid by other employees after your service ends. What this would propose the first tier would remain the same. If you serve less than 8 years, you can continue only if you pay the full premium. If you serve more than 8 years, you can continue to pay if you pay the percentages paid by other employees, if you complete your 2 terms by 2019. And what this bill would do is after 2019, there would be no further Metro subsidy for the Metro health benefits allowed to council members, in a nutshell.
Would a shorter way to say it be that it would flip the discount from being a 75% discount for former council people to a 25% discount?
Correct.
My suggestion, I know that several members have got information requests or dollar amounts that they'd like to know the answers to, and the reason why I'm going to suggest deferring for 3 meetings is to give an opportunity for any questions like that to be collected. And I would, obviously, people can address their questions any way they want, but my request would be that they would go to Mr. Jameson and we could compile any questions about data or information or how this works. And with that, I would move to defer for 3 meetings to the second meeting in August.
Motion made and seconded. Seeing several people in the queue, we'll go to them with a motion. Councilor Lady Dowell?
I'm going to vote against this deferral. I really do, and it's for the same reasons that I guess 5-6 years ago we had the same conversation about if we want to look at this, we need to look at everything in totality. And I think it will help to understand the history of why the health benefit is there. And I'm disappointed once again that we've tried to politicize the health care benefits for council members, because every year we have this come up. It gets a lot of attention from constituents out in our various communities saying that we get free health care. Okay, I did not receive Metro health care. And when you look around this room, the majority of the people in this room are younger people who work full-time jobs, who find it a lot cheaper to purchase insurance through their employer, just like me. And so this benefit really serves, you know, a certain group of people. And those people, in a lot of cases, would not have an opportunity to serve on this body and represent some of the most vulnerable citizens in our city without having access to health care benefits and other things. And so I'm going to vote no against the deferral. I'm going to vote no against it. And what I think that the sponsor should do is come around and have conversations with people and understand the whole health benefit program, as well as the council, why it's there, and so forth before proposing legislation. So I'm voting no on the deferral and no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Bedname.
Yes, thank you. I'm not in the committee, but I wanted to humbly request that you vote against this deferral and just this is, with all due respect to the council member, I think this is we already decided this. We discussed this before. For immigrants, for low-income families, for many people that have to work really hard at building a safety net and to provide for their families, to have to make the choice between running for office or providing for their family shouldn't be an issue. People should be able to run for office without a concern about taking care of their family's future. And when these people don't run, I didn't run for office for the insurance, all right? I didn't even run for office for the money. Obviously, none of us did. But we don't want anybody to say, no, I'm not going to run for office because I'm worried that my son won't be able to get insurance, or my wife or I won't be able to get insurance. That safety net, it's a concern that people postpone when they risk running for office and serving. Most of us take a hit for serving in the city. We do it willfully. Nobody forces us to run for office, but we take a hit. We make less money, and we do it happily because we have a passion to serve the community. But while you're doing that, even though it's a temporary thing, because for the 4 years or 8 years you're in the council, you're making less money, you're also not working towards building your safety net. And that insurance, the ability to have that insurance when you retire and to buy into that insurance when you retire, it's a concern that people shouldn't have to have when they choose to serve the city. So I think if we want to have a council that looks like the city, with the diversity and representation of all people from all walks of life, then, like I said, with all due respect to Mendes, which I agree with him like 99% of the time, I have to strongly disagree on this one. And I encourage the people in this committee to not to defer this and to just vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. My sentiments are the same that's currently already been echoed. I think this is probably one of the most inconsiderate pieces of legislation that's been brought before this body. I move for withdrawal of this legislation.
Proper motion.
Well, Council Lady, I think we have a motion to defer until the second meeting in August that we need to deal with that motion first, parliamentarily speaking, if that's okay, Council Lady. Oh, Here. Is that okay with you?
I would like to table the
Motion is on
deferral.
floor.
Can I table the deferral?
No, I think we have to go ahead and deal with the motion to defer that has been seconded, and then we could go to.
Okay, well, I'll ask the committee to vote the deferral down.
Okay, thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Davis, 1 second. This is a little.
Thank you, Chair. Just these anti-council member bills, as I call them, are sort of a pet peeve of mine. I'll vote no on the deferral as well and go ahead and vote this down. My issue is also that we sort of slid through this raise, I guess, for the next term. It didn't seem to have a lot of discussion from what I recall. So if we were going to have a holistic discussion, I thought we should maybe then have a holistic discussion. It's kind of like we did that, and then now we're coming back with this. Just sort of seems a little bit suspect it's coming up right after that. So I would just ask we vote this deferral down and go ahead and kill this DOA. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Henderson, if I could work this machine. There we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to speak in support of the deferral. I don't think the council member brought this bill as an anti-council member bill, and I feel like if we want to vote as a committee on the merits of this bill, it's incumbent upon us to understand from a financial perspective as the Budget and Finance Committee, what are the implications for the city when, after serving in public office, you can have that health care in perpetuity. What is the cost to the city? And I think we should defer it to get council members' questions answered from a fiscal perspective as the Budget and Finance Committee, and then vote this bill up or down on its fiscal merits, rather than turning it into, politicized or perceptual that this is anti this or anti that. I have many constituents who feel that having that benefit in perpetuity is not a good thing. I'm not sure if I necessarily concur with that, but I would like to understand it better. So I appreciate sometimes when we bring these bills, we raise these questions. Perhaps you who have already served on the council have already had this discussion, but those of us who have not, haven't. And we have constituents who question us about it quite a lot. So, we can vote this bill up or down on its merits after we have the questions answered from a fiscal perspective from Mr. Jamison. So I would encourage us all in the spirit of, understanding things from every side, not to just antagonistically try not to defer this and kill this now when it's only on second, and I support the deferral.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you. So I do think the bill has some merits, but I do think we have to look at the council holistically. And I think if we were to look at people's, on the council, the professions, the gender, and the marriage makeup, the reason the council reflects the way it does is because of the pay for the council and also the benefits. So I do think we have to look at it holistically. So in other words, I do believe that there will be more people at the table, and it would be more diverse, and there would probably be more women, and it would be, they wouldn't have to be married or make a certain income or run their own business if we looked at the benefits holistically. And so that's the health care and the amount. I mean, it's $15,000. We just recently got some staff to help us there. So I think we have to look at it, and it's not only just a problem here, but it is a national problem. And I don't know the last time that the council received a raise. I think it's been this way since like the 70s. When has it been that way, please? Mr. Ku, I'm talking about the actual pay. How? Okay, so the last increase was in 2003, but at the same time they gave up, it was something that they gave up, like they had they gave up the expense account. So I just think it needs to be looked at holistically, because if we look at the salaries compared to others across the United States, it's not on par. And I do think you want to rate the citizens to have money, but at the same time you want anyone who wants to participate should be able to participate in government. And when I say that, it means to run. And when we have certain policies, you don't think about it if you make a high income or if you own your own business. You just don't think about those things. But a person that is very knowledgeable would not be able to participate. So I just say we need to think about it a little bit more. And so that's what I would have to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. And back to the bill sponsor who's made a motion to defer until the second meeting in August, which was seconded, which is the motion on the floor. All in favor of the sponsor's motion to defer until the second meeting in August, please say aye. All opposed?
Show of hands.
No. Show of hands.
Raise them high.
If you would raise them high, all in favor of the motion to defer until the second meeting in August.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4, and all opposed, please raise your hands high.
2, 4, 5, 6. Fails.
So the motion fails to defer until the second meeting in August, and so we're on to 790 itself. Yes, Council Lady?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to make a motion to withdraw.
Can't make a motion to withdraw. The sponsor.
Only the sponsor, I believe, can make a motion to withdraw.
Correct.
So
I move the table.
There's nothing to
I
table.
moved
It's a disapproval. She can
Yeah.
vote against it.
I'm being advised, Council Lady, that the vote is up or down. You can vote to disapprove on the motion itself, on the bill itself on 790. So we're, with no one else in the queue other than the sponsor, that's our next vote for approve or disapproval of 790. So, sponsor, you're still on the machine. Would you like any further comments?
I don't think there is any motion pending.
So there would be a motion to
So I'll move to defer for 2 meetings.
Is there a second? Motion made to defer for 2 meetings with a second. Councilman Leonardo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if it's an appropriate motion, but as I'm not a sponsor, can I make a motion to defer indefinitely?
The motion on the floor is to defer 2 meetings. You can make.
I don't want to speak on that motion, though.
Okay. All right. Back to Council Lady Dowell on the motion to defer 2 meetings.
Yes, for the same reasons why I'm voting this down, and even if it comes to the floor, I'm voting it down again. I go back to, I don't believe in cherry picking and line item and one thing in this. I think if the sponsor was really interested in saving the city some money and proposing these pieces of legislation, then he would sit down and look at things holistically. You don't look at one thing. One thing that this council body has done, and I'll say this as a second-term council member, is that we have continuously cherry-picked every tool, any benefit that we could possibly have that would help people, that would enable us to have, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but everything that we would have that would encourage somebody that is not wealthy to run for office and to represent the people, we've taken it away. And it's evident by the people sponsoring and supporting it. They're in wealthier districts where, well, they are. They're not in Antioch. And they don't have to, they're in Green Hills and Westmead and nice places where these types of benefits may not be a hindrance to them. It's not a hindrance to me because I have a job, and most people in here have a job, but I speak passionately about it because I know when I talk to regular people in our city and I encourage them to run for office, and I will say it's mostly women. It's mostly women because mostly women are on their insurance with their husbands and their spouses, and they worry about these things, and I think it's very important for Nashville to be able to have just regular people representing the city. And I also think that I did last time when we had this come up, I asked the budget office to send us a detail and a forecast and how much it's costing now. A big bulk of it was people who had been here before we had term limits, and the cost was it was not that much back then. I don't foresee it being that much today because as I talk to people in here, most of the people in here have jobs that they work and they participate in their own insurance program. But I think if we want to cut something, you know, I think what the sponsor needs to do is look at the council overall. And I think that's what needs to happen because we need to look at the salary, need to look at the fact that we use our own telephones. We need to look at the whole responsibility that we have as an elected official and come up with something comprehensive that works instead of constantly cherry picking, taking away one thing at a time. So that's why I'm going to vote no. And I think if you're interested and serious about doing that, that would be the path that I would take. So I would withdraw it. I would go meet with the benefits department and I would go look at other cities and come up with something that would validate your case for taking away, and I do believe, another benefit in politicizing health benefits.
Thank you, Council Lady. Back to the bill's sponsor, who's made a motion for a 2-meeting deferral that has been seconded. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of the 2-meeting deferral that has been seconded, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. All right. The 2-meeting deferral has been, motion has been defeated. And on to recommending 790 itself to the council. Councilman Leonardo.
At this point, I would make a motion to defer indefinitely.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to defer indefinitely. Seeing back to the sponsor, would you have any comment? No? Motion properly made and seconded to defer indefinitely. Calling for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
It carries.
It carries. Well,
That's what I heard. But
that's what we heard, that it carries, unless anybody feels otherwise. All right? That it carries. 790 is deferred indefinitely. And then with the permission of the committee, I see our wonderful executive director, Harbison, here. We'll go back to the top of the order with 768, which was without anybody from MDHA being here. That was deferred earlier, but with you here, with the approval of the committee, we'll take up 768 at this time, seeing no objection. RS 2017-768, a resolution authorizes the execution of a cooperation agreement between Metro and the Metro Development and Housing Agency. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. And Councilman Mendez, are you wishing to speak on 768? Well, if you didn't mind, I have a quick question for Director Harbison. Thank you for patiently waiting through our meeting. In the cooperation agreement between Metro and MDHA, there's an $80 figure for the for-profit units on MDHA property. How is the $80 calculated? Where does the $80 number come from?
To get a detailed answer, I'll need to give you something in writing. We basically looked at what we thought the number of units would be in Envision Casey, a rough estimate of what we thought the services would be from the city in that mixed income community. And then in discussion with Mr. Mendez, came that as a reasonable figure that would increase the amount of money coming to Metro and allow us, we thought, to meet our requirements for underwriting under a standard HUD loan. So we were trying to figure out how to balance borrowing the money with an insurance program from HUD to build a mixed income community with the services that the city provides and some rough metrics of what they provide. That was basically what our staff worked on and came up with.
So the $80 is not reflecting a market rate?
It does not. There will be market rate rents in mixed income communities, but those rents will serve to help pay the debt that's incurred to build the mixed income community, which the affordable rents we get on subsidy will not. So I'm not sure I can make that as clear, but remember, we're going to have a third roughly of previous, the same number of units, but roughly a third of the tenants will be 80% median income below with a fixed amount from HUD for what we get for subsidy. We're going for roughly a third for a workforce, and that's going to be 80 to 120% of AMI and 30% of what they make. And then the top end would be unlimited, just whatever the market would bear. So as we try to figure out what that top end would pay in taxes on those units, we were trying to make sure we preserved enough of that resource, the cash, to pay down the debt on the other two pieces in the model we're working on for Casey now.
Thank you. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so because I had questions on this, and I didn't hear what we'd moved back to, but I know where we are now. All right, so not really understanding this, when are we going to get the information on how the $80 and the rubric that was used and the rationale behind it? Because this seems to be, there's a lot of moving pieces in this puzzle, and I don't fully understand if $80 is equitable, if it's not. There's a lot of unanswered questions for me, and it doesn't sound like there's a real answer given to us right now. Am I missing something?
Well, we did this before. I sent a letter to every member of council. We laid out the details of how the cooperation agreement was negotiated. We've worked it through with Metro Finance and their attorneys. We've been working on it for about a year and a half. So since it had already passed and we're changing 3 words on a previous resolution with this goal, I didn't come as prepared, frankly, as I did before. But we worked with Mr. Cooper from Metro Legal. We worked with Talia's office. It's been staffed through the mayor's office. We started this roughly the time we thought, once we knew we were getting the RAD conversions, we started then. We presently have no market rate units. We have 0. We have some that are carried at what HUD calls market, but they're not the true market rate. And I'd have to go back and recreate all that, but I can. I can't do it presently.
That's fine. I guess I wasn't quite reading it as that we were just changing 3 words. So that's why.
So this has been previously passed by council.
Okay.
I don't know the date, but I've been here
it's
before.
It's 690.
Right. So and then what occurred is we went back and looked at it just before the mayor was going to sign. We were trying to get clarity on how we identify, and we have none now, but in the future, if we have commercial property, in the future, how would we do it? And we had discussion with Mr. Mendez on how that would be approached. And one would be to have a separate pilot, and the separate would be basically a denominator numerator where you make a percentage of the total square foot area. The language in that wasn't as clear as the attorneys would like, so we brought it back, and after we clarified that language, they thought we need to come back here. And I defer to Mr. Jameson on that one, but I think I've captured it properly.
Okay, so Mike, for those of us who are not attorneys, the 3 words, what impact of the 3 words?
So the 50-80 difference really isn't in play here. That got adopted by the council back in 690 a couple of months ago. So what's at play here is, just to step back, MDHA is trying to engage in the more modern housing industry, and they're trying to go to mixed-use developments, right? So it's no longer just housing developments that have residential. They now, when it comes to pilot, have to come up with a method for evaluating the structure that is part commercial, part residential. How do you value the pilot rate for that commercial rate? So what we previously approved back in 690 was a rate that begins with this. You take what their full tax value would have been, then you subtract that full tax value multiplied by a ratio of the total residential housing square footage divided by the total parcel square footage. You do that subtraction, then you've got a pilot rate. That doesn't really capture the value of the commercial property. So all this does in changing 3 words is it now changes the ratio to, you take the full tax equivalent value, you subtract the full value multiplied by the total housing or total rental space divided by the total improvement square footage. That smaller denominator has a more, I think, sensitive calculated ratio for the value of the commercial space. That's all they're trying to get for purposes of calculating their pilot rates. And the 50-80, that's not part of this, and he can probably just resend the memo that he sent a couple of months ago on that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll tell you, I don't remember. I read it at the time, but I don't remember. So that's why I was trying to understand what exactly were we doing in this. Still not exactly clear, but I'll talk to you on the side to try and get a little bit better understanding of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no one else in the queue, All in favor, and the motion having been made and seconded, all in favor of 768, please say aye. All opposed, 768 is
And a motion to rescind the prior action for deferral.
Oh, and a motion to rescind the prior action for deferral, since we, by consent, brought 768 back. So moved and seconded. All in favor of rescinding the previous motion, say aye. And then to approve 768 and recommend it to the council, please say aye. Thank you very much. I apologize for this going the extra distance for this. And with this, the Budget and Finance Committee is adjourned.